here. And so, first off, we're going to start with, as you see in the title, the top 10 of my choice, top 10 video games of 2023. First and foremost, we need to let you know the main disclaimers. This does not include DLC. DLC are connections or
No Phantom
parts or
Liberty,
extra
folks.
creations of games. They are not games in and of themselves for the most part. So I'm not including DLC as a game alone. We're talking about just individual wholesale games that I feel as though represent gaming and the best of 2023. They're not going to
Are we doing
necessarily.
remakes?
Yes,
I thought
remakes
this
are
was
individual separate
remakes
games
of
that
the
happen to be remakes of former games, but they are somewhat, in some of these examples, entirely new games. So yes,
Resident Evil
yes,
4,
there
yeah.
will be remakes included, just not DLC. No, because you know that you can do top 10 DLC for your own thing, but I have to show the top 10 video games I feel of 2023. You know, so I will start off with what I feel is number 10. Number 10, I think, is one that came straight out of left field from the beginning of the year that surprised quite a bit of people, in my opinion. My number 10, I feel, is Hi-Fi Rush. I feel
I
It
love
was
this
Hi-Fi
game.
pleasantly surprising, no doubt.
was a wonderful, one of those few games, you know, you get every year that comes straight out of left field that you didn't expect to be good. You didn't really hear of anything. And plus, it's a rhythm-based game.
Zone
That in and
called
of
that.
itself is difficult to catch on with. But Hi-Fi Rush was, it might be the surprise game of the year. It is wonderful. It is a great game. I really, really enjoyed just Hi-Fi Rush. Everything was about, like, just, you know, the tone, the feeling, the gameplay is phenomenal. I give so much props for that. Just it's enjoyable, even just to look at, and, like, you know, give me some good memories and feelings of a lot of old other cartoons and different games and stuff. So I enjoy Hi-Fi Rush. This is my number 10.
Hey,
I
can
already
we give backstory? It dropped on the same day as Redfall,
It did
which
drop on the same day.
which
as Resident
Xbox some reason Xbox chose to promote Redfall over this game.
well,
Evil.
you
I
know,
want
They
to
not,
say the
this
cast
game
of
was
characters
announced.
in Hi-Fi
This
Rush
game was
top
announced
tier.
the day it came out. It didn't even have an announcement. It didn't have a trailer, nothing. This game just came out the day Redfall came out. Like, hey, we dropping another game too, but we forgot to mention it. And here it is. And it's a way better game than the game they promoted for 3 years.
well, you know, Redfall had a lot more money behind the marketing. I ain't say behind the game, but behind the marketing. You know, it had a bigger company being Arcane Studios. You know, with Microsoft, of course, pushing the game like this is the one. This is our first major exclusive we've been planning for, and it was a horrendous failure for a number of reasons. So you know, just it is
They
what it
dropped
is.
its
But
heat the
luckily, this
same
one,
day though.
yeah, it just so happens that, hey, you know, it came out the same day, but only one can survive. And we still talk about Hi-Fi
Redfall
Rush
is
for a
not
good
on this list.
and the other one is dang near dead on Steam. So you know, this is what I feel though number 10 is. I feel like I'm not gonna really get a lot of pushback on any games until I get like a few of them under the belt and then be like, why is this so low and stuff. And of course, I didn't forget your comment. Mr. Hicks. We'll see if that ends up being number one. But, so that's number 10. Number 9, I feel as though is another surprise, but only because I didn't really believe it would be that good, just because we know of how sometimes games go when they take forever to come out with
But
sequels.
the visual stunningness of this game set
Yes,
everything
it took
apart. The
such a
way
long
this
time for the
game
sequel to come out.
looks,
I almost
my
didn't think it would be
God,
that good. But surprisingly, Alan Wake 2 is one of the best games this year.
bro.
Yeah, you might have to go bring up the old 360 or pull out that old Game Pass to play Alan Wake, the first one. But
Yep.
wonderful narrative, wonderful visuals. This is one of the scariest games, if not the scariest game, this year. As well
Yo,
as a
the jump scares
surprise.
were next level on this shit.
It was
And even
good.
the ambiance of it, like the whole ambiance of the game, the horror element of it was played up so high that it plateaued, but not in like a bad way. It was just consistently scary.
Like I give it props for that. It was great. I was pleasantly surprised at how good like it was. Only because a lot of times when 13 years pass between game one and game two, a lot of your fan base sometimes isn't there to meet you halfway. A lot of them just isn't. They ain't gonna make it too far. But Alan Wake 2 defied the odds. It was not Duke Nukem Forever. It was good. It was solid. The story was great. Game's great. I have no real issues with Alan Wake 2. Surprising, wonderful game. Although some people
Did
might
you
wonder
have
why I
any
only have it in
issues
number
with it
9.
running?
My reasoning is because not everybody likes scary games, and of course, the fan base, you would have to have played Alan Wake the first to really want to understand the purpose of Alan Wake 2 and a lot of the story elements that connects to it, as well as with the new main character. So it's not for everyone. This is what limits it a lot, in my opinion. It's not a game that everybody's just gonna pick up and play. Not to mention, it's not a game everybody can pick up and play if you do not know nothing of the first one to at least some extent. And the first one already is a headspace in of itself. But it's my number 9. We go to number 8. This is where we might get a little bit of the division, but I do have Street Fighter 6.
Interesting. Okay, now I can jump in the discussion.
I have Street Fighter 6 as number 8, and I will go ahead and put a nice disclaimer and spoiler. I don't have Mortal Kombat 1 on the list at all. Ooh. This is a fighting game that I chose for number 6. It going between this and Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat does have a better story, but Street Fighter 6 was created more for average and regular players. It does have more features.
Combos are a lot easier, folks.
Yes, like it has more features to be able to do. For me, Mortal Kombat only has invasion mode, which I think is a step down from the other features that were available, at least in Mortal Kombat 9 and 10 that you were able to do. Street Fighter just has more to do. The online server was a bit better at launch. It's easier to pick up. The story mode isn't as good, but it does have somewhat of a story, even with a character creation model. So it's more friendly for more people, as well as the gameplay is definitely fluid, definitely wonderful. Like typical Street Fighter normally is when they're not, screwing around, Capcom. So in my opinion, this is the fighting game of the year. We'll see what Tekken comes out with in January. And Mortal Kombat was good, not saying that it wasn't. But I think Street Fighter 6 takes fighting game of the year, and it takes a number 8 spot for the best games in 2023, in my opinion. Unico, you said you can jump in. What do you have to say about this number 8 spot for Street Fighter 6?
This game and the model is so cartoonish. Like, I love how Street Fighter has that fluidity as to where, like they can change their character models and make them look cartoonish. Like they got my man's here looking. Man, that story mode was terrible. I think that the cardboard box enemies was terrible. I think that was awful. Like, yeah, we got on jumpsuits and we got on a box. So that means that, we enemies. But I had a lot of fun playing the game. Playing through the story mode. I'm a story mode guy. I'm scared to hop online because they might be mean to me. I know. And so they will be mean, even on this game where you got people smiling like this. Somebody be like, yeah.
If I'm beating you in Street Fighter, I'm talking shit to the 9.
And that's fair. So with that being said, but it was very easy to pick up and play. And I enjoyed playing with my creative player, and I was like, I never thought that I would enjoy playing with a creative player. I thought I was just going to be straight up Ryu, but I had a great time playing with Ken's skills. But you can also let me go ahead and do that upside down helicopter kick with Chun-Li out of nowhere. So the game was definitely fun, and we did push through the terrible story mode, but it was fun actually just fighting through it. As bad as the story was, in a sense, it was fun to fight through it. But you will get your butt kicked on there by them random AIs, though. So
definitely so.
Not be out here losing to Street Fighter AI. What are we fucking talking about? This is craziness.
Man, they will throw a knife at you.
Nigga, listen. I take any and all challengers as Zangief, guaranteed. My super combos are nice. This is not a joke to me.
I'll meet you in the hub, and I'm not talking about the one you thinking.
765, vibes.
So we're gonna go with number 8. That's Street Fighter. Number 7. Like I said, this might be a little more debatable, especially when I had Alan Wake. It's number 9, but I'm going to go with number 7 being Dead Space remake from the beginning of the year. I believe it'd be number 7.
I almost forgot about this.
Oh, yeah, I know. Once you go back to the game games that came out in January, February, you got to think about it for a second. But this is my number 7, I feel, for a few reasons. One, to remake a game, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Remaking a game and it being successful is already a reward in and of itself. But Dead Space remake is actually quite good. It's just as scary as the original one. It keeps a lot of the flavor and a lot of the memories and a lot of the good parts of the original Dead Space. Adds on some other stuff that's also good. The beautiful visuals. Necromorphs are still horrible to look at and horrible to fight. It doesn't change anything. And the difference between this and Alan Wake for me is that anybody can pick up Dead Space. this first one. Anybody can pick it up and play it. Now, it is scary and all get out. And, you will get mutilated. And there's a couple of scenes that are just as gruesome to look at as they ever were. Not to mention, they got rid of the stupid meteor section. Thank God they actually got rid of something that was a negative from the original remake game. So they actually fixed problems. They fixed things that were bad. So it's actually a remake that listened, okay, we're going to take this out. This wasn't good. Thank you. So to me, game is great. It's a wonderful, scary game. It's almost the best scary game of this year. Did great work with me. I have no real problems with Dead Space's remake. But anybody to pick up and play will scare the crap out of you at some points because them jump scares are something.
It's fun once you get the hang of it, though.
But yes, it's also fun. The narrative is not super deep. So unlike Alan Wake 2, you have to pay attention to almost everything. It's basically exactly what you see. And I think the ease of access and the ease of play and just the ease of picking it up gives it that notch over Alan Wake 2, even though Alan Wake 2 has a more in-depth storyline. Yeah. But I do respect this one.
Also, the weapon selection in Dead Space is amazing. They didn't add
They
didn't add in anything crazy, but they kept all the favorite staples from the original. You can never have a bad time shooting space.
Yeah, I was just saying it's easy to pick up Dead Space. Dead Space is an easy game to pick up. You don't have to think as hard. You don't have to be like, oh, I got to be involved in the story. Be like, hey, listen, I just want to be scared.
Basically,
I just want to be afraid. But by the way, I do want to say, even if you look at, like I said, basically, if you watch this year's in game, it's gonna be games on this year that Monte don't even have on this list that are amazing. So, this is a
they already know.
I can tell because it didn't make the list that might have should have.
Last year had games that would. It's gonna be games on this list that would have been top 4 last year. They ain't gonna make this list, and I would probably even agree with they shouldn't make this list, and they'd probably be top 4 from last year.
It was a great game.
That's how good a gaming year this is.
It was a good gaming year.
Surprisingly, yes. Surprisingly, yes. It's not a lie. It is some games that will be here that would rule last year, but that may not be here, that may not be here again. We will see. And of course, there are going to be some, especially some Nintendo games, because I know it's going to be a very big deficit of those. There's going to be some Nintendo games that would rule last year too. But we know how they.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to this. I did say that this was the second best scary game I feel of this year because and we're not talking about the clone of Dead Space to try to come out at the end of last year. We're not talking about that. But no, there was another scary game, another remake that was actually successful, that actually held its own throughout the scrutiny of why would you remake a groundbreaking game? That would be Resident Evil 4. That I do feel for number 6 best game this year, Resi 4. It also has the ease of just picking it up and playing because Resi 4 is pretty much a restart of certain points in the franchise. You don't need to have played Residents 1, 2, and 3 to understand everything in 4, especially because Leon is not necessarily part like all those. You don't need to do that. When they remade it, they add different camera angles and different things to the game that actually makes it feel like a different game without taking away from the original, which is a hard balance to be able to do. And the game's length is way better than Resi 3 because Resi 3 was really a freaking DLC that they decided to put out for $60, $70 that they know they was wrong for. So Resident Evil 4 is actually a wholesale game. It's actually a wholesale remake that actually does justice to the groundbreaking game that was the original. And it actually has a solid story, not just like a baseline story, but a solid story with Leon that you can go through. I enjoyed it. I think it's really good. I think it's a solid game. You'll get more bang for your buck, quote unquote, than just a regular Dead Space. But the complexity of the game is not nowhere near like the complexity of Alan Wake 2 that you'll need to go back to do. So I think it's the perfect balance of both. And so I think it just not under top 5, but I think it definitely is a solid entry and a solid entry into this year's games. This is my number 6. I will hear any rebuttal or any difference or any commentary for Resi 4.
I think it probably could have been higher.
It felt better. It felt better than when I played it on GameCube. You know what I'm saying? Like it felt
that was your first mistake.
Well,
play it on PS2 like the rest of us did. Come on.
Hey, we ain't doing GameCube slander now. We ain't doing GameCube.
We ain't talking about the GameCube version.
Don't slander one of my favorite consoles.
That's what I played it on initially. So I mean, but it just felt better. Like especially when it first
Joe, you
came
right.
out, and
GameCube, awesome.
that's fair. I just thought it just felt better. Like it's easier to play. Like just all these remakes that have been made, or they just feel easier to play. You don't really got a crazy tank control thing going on like they had back in the day. I don't know who thought that was a great idea, but it just felt better. The game felt easier to me. It reminds me of Metal Gear Solid when they made Twin Snakes. That you use the Metal Gear Solid 2, like first person shooter and all that type of stuff. That game and tranquilizer darts and stuff, that made the game feel easier to play than when I first played it. So which in my opinion makes it a good game because it felt better to play. You know what I mean?
Gotta love that. Gotta love that. And of course, if you are just joining, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow the Make It Make Sense, the podcast YouTube channel, and everywhere you see
Absolutely.
our lovely logo right here. If you are watching, if you are following, if you appreciate the content, we are here. And if you are just catching up, this is the top 10 games, from my opinion, of 2023. If you missed out, number 10, I felt was Hi-Fi Rush. Number 9 was Alan Wake 2. Number 8 was Street Fighter 6. 7 was Dead Space's remake. 6 was Resi 4. That's where we are right now, because now these top 5, this is where it's going to get a little more controversial, because I can definitely tell you my top 5 is going to have some
Oh
stuff not in
man,
the
I'm
order you thought it would be. So I
I'm
would say,
worried.
and this is where some of my bias will definitely come in, because it is to me. So this is definitely where some of my bias will be in. I'll just go ahead and tell you this right now. This is where some of my bias will be. So number 5, let's go ahead and take the band-aid off, I feel is Hogwarts Legacy. Reason
Not bad.
I feel Hogwarts Legacy. One, a lot of people have let this game go out of memory. Go ahead and get it out of the way now. But Hogwarts Legacy was one of the games when it was about to come out on its way out that people were afraid they'll actually be able to pull off the world of Hogwarts and actually be able to pull off this game with any kind of success. Since we do have things like Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows, those other games that sort of don't do the job well. But Hogwarts Legacy was a wonderful, wonderful game, wonderful open world, wonderful entry into the series. If you knew nothing of Harry Potter, you didn't have to. Gameplay was good. Everything about the game was fine. Everything, even from like the choices you was able to make. Now it's not full open world choice. You couldn't necessarily be evil and do a Vada Kedavra curse and just off somebody. No, you couldn't do it that way. They wouldn't let you be that dark. But
You can in
it
combat.
did actually be wonderfully successful as a game in and of itself. It was able to, assuage everybody's fears. We're not going to screw around with Harry Potter. We're not going to make it to where you off Hagrid. We're not going to make it horrible for you to play. Actually good. Streamed everywhere. So many people love watching it. So many people love playing it. Great introduction. Great wholesale in every fashion. It doesn't really have a lot of negatives other than, big post-game things, something like that. Game was great. Had no problems. I think Hogwarts Legacy is number 5 on the list. Who has things to say?
It was it. I think you hit the nail on the head. It was a super good.
I got to see the rest
starting
of it.
point. They made sure to put the game far enough back in time to where you could get certain story hints, and it wasn't like you were gonna irreparably damage the canon. But you know what I mean? It was in a place that was good where you could do a lot of stuff. It gave you sort of the Hogwarts student um, experience. Uh, Once you add in like the unforgivable curses and everything, which I mean, they even were smart about that. They gave you the choice whether you made one of your friends use them or whether you decided to use them. We all know that I was definitely using them. There wasn't no way I wasn't going to use the Cruciatus curse. But no, was the ending of the game a little lackluster? Yes, yes, it was. It tried to do so much, and then it was just so bare bones at the end. It was awkward.
Yeah, try to rush through it apparently.
Other than that,
I won't say 10. No, the Puss in Boots movie. Come on now, stop. Nobody even remember what the name of the Puss in Boots movie was. We're not gonna just bash the heck out of a Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah, that's wild behavior at this point.
Let's not do that now. I gotta think you may not like the choice, but let's not go crazy. Like it was horrible, please.
I think it was a beautiful game visually. My goodness. And you don't have to be a Harry Potter nerd to know what's going on. I had a great time playing this game. As long as I played it.
Exactly.
It felt good. Felt good too.
Yo, Joe Joe will finish the game in like he'll finish
I'll
it.
be
What
streaming
year?
it in
About Troy, what year Joe
2026
finish it?
whenever they
Yeah,
come out
he'll
with
finish
Grand
it.
Theft Auto 6.
I mean, especially considering that Hogwarts Legacy was made by, a company that's not necessarily well known. Shout out to Avalanche Software and of course Warner Brothers who published the game. But like you got to look at Portkey Games. It's not gonna act like they're Bethesda, like
Right.
Activision. They're not like a hugely well known company, and they're able to take this job and ran with it. I give them nothing but props. I give them nothing but props. To say it wasn't fun, come on now, like. I ain't gonna say Hogwarts Legacy isn't fun. Like, stop. Let's not do this. Let's not do this.
Well,
I'm not gonna
I
say.
mean, they're not the.
If it wasn't
that's
fun, it
the
wouldn't have
first time
sold.
I've seen that opinion. There are quite a few people that just didn't. They felt like the fighting was contrived, and you didn't really. It was all meant to be. It was all look and no substance at the end of the day. You know what I mean? I've seen a lot of that talk about Hogwarts Legacy.
Like I can't say it's like complicated playing. Like it's not complicated gameplay, nothing of that nature. But of course, they wanted to make the gameplay easily accessible to anybody. When I say any and everybody, were picking up and playing this game just because like you're a fan of anything. Anybody could pick up and play this. Versus a couple of these next options, anybody cannot pick up and play. But now 3 and 4, I can't lie, I had to struggle with either personal bias versus like the overall.
Here it goes. This is
game.
okay. Here it
So
goes.
I had to struggle a bit. My number 4 is Final Fantasy 16.
That ain't that much of a struggle.
I
That
was
was
not-
just
No.
I
You
was
understand
saying,
when
I
I
thought
show
this
you
was
what number
gonna be
3 is for my personal struggle, not the overall struggle of the choice, but my personal struggle because I love this game. I love.
I'm saying that without knowing the other 3 games too, by the way.
Yeah,
So
I love 16. Like, and it was surprising because 16, for anybody that knows the Final Fantasy in the history, is a complete departure from basically every other Final Fantasy. It's not Platinum Games was involved in this, which you can clearly see. It's all action, all complete gameplay, like it's Bayonetta and Devil May Cry. Not turn-based, not slow in any way. Even the story is way darker than most of any other story of the series, especially even with the tone, the characters, the entire substance of its story in and of itself. The entire thing is dark. And so it's a complete separation and departure. And they basically took a crack at it and you're like, you know what? This game works. It worked. So it was a wonderful game. I had no problems, except for the fact that there's like a lack of post-game content, which is not really known as every other Final Fantasy game. Every other Final Fantasy game is known, of course, Square Enix and itself are most of the time known for post-game. And this doesn't really have that. It's once you're done with the story, pretty much done with the game. Especially if you did side quests during it, it's just pretty much finished. So it doesn't have a lot of extra, but it has really good work, really good substance, really good beauty, really good gameplay about the game, especially for them taking on a new direction in it. Wonderful. No real issue with it. I love the game. I love everything about it. Think it's a good number 4. Let's get it. Opinions.
I think that time and time again, Final Fantasy have showed us when they decide to go to the darker side of the fantasy spectrum, they do it quite well. Whether you look back and it be Aerith's death in Final Fantasy VII, the whole Jecht storyline of Final Fantasy X. Whenever Final Fantasy or SquareSoft or Square Enix, I always get that. I forgot it's a thing, but that when they go into this darker side of fantasy, they're always super pinpoint with it. They hit the nail on the head every time. It's good. You can't complain about it. If they did it badly, there'd be something horrible to complain about. But they pretty much nail it whenever they decide to take the time to do it.
I have no complaints about Final Fantasy 16. I love
Super
that game.
solid game. This whole like we said at the beginning, folks. This whole year in gaming, I don't know if people just are. I guess hindsight's 2020, but it's been a super solid year in gaming. Have there been
Very
some
much.
flops? Yes. But have there been some amazing stuff that'll sit in people's catalogs for the next few years to come? Also, yes.
I'm cool with it. Cool with it. This is number 4. And I had to debate because I had to go for either the game that I personally love the most or the game that was slightly higher rated, that is a lot bigger, that I have respect for. And so I will say that number 3 is going to be Legend of
Oh
Zelda,
God.
Tears of the Kingdom. I don't really have much of a choice but to rank this high. The game was great. The game was awesome, especially considering that they put this thing on the Switch. But the game was great. The game was awesome. The game is massive. It added everything on top of the game of the year that was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. It had everything on top of that except that you expanded the gameplay. Now the story, I'm gonna be real,
Oh,
Zelda.
there we
I
go.
don't really know much for stories. I'm not gonna act like the story's groundbreakingly amazing. I'm not finna go nowhere
I'm
near.
glad you're admitting.
I'm not finna do that. That's why it's not gonna be nowhere near 1 or 2. I'm not gonna act like the story is amazing, but to be fair, and people can be real with themselves, you don't play Zelda for the story. You play Zelda for the
For the
gameplay and for the
puzzles.
shock value and the other stuff. You do not play it for stories because the story is as convoluted as
There
hell.
was
But
one story I
It was
played
just
for.
boring. The story was boring, folks.
like, you don't do that.
It just was.
5. I can't do 5. I can't do 5. Like,
Yeah,
treat me like, oh, my bad.
If
Hold on.
I had
Oh
a
my God.
top 10 list, this would definitely have been lower. I'm not gonna lie. But the
I,
story,
I respect it and I
means a
honor
lot,
what the game
too.
is done. It's too big and too successful and too overall rated and good for
I'm
me to
waiting to
put
see
it
what
with
your
it.
1 and 2 are.
1 and 2 should be obvious. It's just which one is 1 and which one is 2. 1 and 2 should be obvious. Give me a
I
percent.
don't know. Because
Like, I'm not
the
crazy.
list that I'm willing to bet, the games that I'm willing to bet money will win game of the year this year has not been on this list so far.
Well, we got 2 spots left. You know how that goes. Give me just a second. I mean, like, I respect it.
One of them
I
gonna be
like it.
showing Monte Bass, and the other one is just obvious the game of the year. So I don't know. So, we know who the top 2 is. One of them is really game of the year, and one of them is Monte Sony Bass.
Yeah, we'll
That's your
see.
opinion.
I'm waiting to
Okay,
see.
9 I think is wild.
there you go.
9 is wild for this game.
Bruh,
There's not 8 other games better than Tears of the Kingdom from 2023. There's not 8 of them better. Like, I can't go that far. Like BMT, shout out to BMT who might be on here shortly. If you want to drop down to 5, I'm not even mad at 5. I won't even be mad at 5 just out of personal love for Final Fantasy 16. I won't say that. But so number 2, we're gonna get the backlash. That's fine, and we're gonna get the argument because this is the one that they say is game of the year. I don't agree, even though I do think it's a wonderfully rated, wonderful game in and of itself, and that is, of course, Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay,
You already know how
game of the
right here.
already know.
The
I think
Sony
it's
Bass
controversy
number
begin.
1.
I was gonna say
No,
this
no, no.
nigga's
I think
fighting
it's not even
No,
Sony.
no.
I think it's 2. I think it's 2.
Here come
I think that's a real.
Why
Here
it's
come the
not doing
Sony Bass number 1.
No. My reasoning has nothing to do with something. My reason, one, Baldur's Gate 3, it's a wonderful game. It's the epitome of the series.
It's amazing.
The game's massive. The game is
fuck a
crazy,
dragon,
especially
folks.
with all the everybody flirting with each other. The game is insanity almost, like just how big and how massive and stuff it is. My thing, the game is not for everybody.
That's true. Okay, I'll give you that.
It is not for everybody. Everybody cannot play top-down tabletop MMORPG style games. The
You
game
gotta
is
love
not for
Dungeons and
everybody.
Dragons, yo.
That is just the truth. Everybody's not into massively open world fantasy, like necessarily like World of Warcraft. It's just not for everybody. So it's not openly
Which is
level.
also having a resurgence this year.
The game is wonderful if you are into this kind of game. It's massive. It's wonderful. It's great.
It is amazing.
I don't really have anything negative to say about it. Just if you choose to play the game, and then of course when you get in the game, you might get lost with all the crap that you can do. Just good lord, especially Act 2. The tone shifts, the story shifts in the game.
Have you guys ran an
Gotcha.
evil playthrough yet?
I got you.
Run an evil
That's my next
playthrough
playthrough,
and come back. And this
I mean,
game
another point, and shout out to Jalen, that is true. PC is another reason. Like, it's not like, it's not everybody don't necessarily have access to it. Because, let's be real, the entire world
I
hasn't made
think
around to
that's
have
the
a PC yet.
opposite way. I think
Everybody's
the
not seeing
PC is far more accessible than a console. You
How?
probably got more people playing. Look at the active user numbers on Baldur's Gate. It's wild.
I mean, of course, you're going to have active user numbers because it's a consecutive game that people are going to stay playing. Of course it is. But everybody in the world don't have PC. It just don't. Like, the more casual average gamer is going to, most of the time, especially if they're younger, most of the time it's just going to have some kind of console.
Baldur's Gate coming.
But I wouldn't even add in PC. I wouldn't add in PC into it. I was saying, like, it's not the kind of game that everybody's just going to run up and play. It's not. Most people, unless you're into that kind of fantasy style RPG game, which everybody here loves RPGs, you're not going to necessarily know or go to Baldur's Gate 3 style for like, what the frick is that? Like, so it's not for everybody. Especially like just nobody necessarily going to know the characters. Nobody necessarily going to be familiar with gameplay and that kind of style. Open world fantasy elements. It's just not. Everybody's just not going to be immediately into Baldur's Gate like that. But once you get into that world from 1, 2 to 3, once you get into that realm, you're there. Now, of course, They're on at least one game, and it is not Sony bias. It's just the argument I have against this being one. Number one does not
Sound
have that
biased.
problem.
Yeah, it does.
And that's
too.
Spider-Man 2. Like that's Spider-Man 2. The reason I say this is because one,
Joe is 100% Sony biased. He don't even have another
it's
system.
not Sony bias. Just to me, it don't have that problem. The game,
Nigga, I have a
But when
story
we
is
come
great.
to the actual
Like,
game
just think about it
awards,
to me.
we
The
know
story
what's
is great.
winning game of the year.
The gameplay is great. Whether it be the dual characters, the dual character gameplay, the gameplay of the both characters are completely different from each other. The game's great. The open world is fine. The accuracy of the story is fine. The moments of the game are fine. It doesn't really have the same issues. Not to mention anybody can pick up and play Spider-Man. Not to mention most people know who Spider-Man is, just off rip. Anybody can pick up and play Spider-Man. Nobody really has an issue with that. The gameplay is relatively easy enough to be able to catch on, but it has enough challenge to where even people are giving it credit because the game is easy. Just like, oh, Super Mario, like for example, it's just like, oh, we can look at it, oh, we can actually play this. We can actually focus on this. The seriousness, everything from Black Suit Peter to, stuff with Harry to Miles Morales being a newer-ish character that people may not necessarily know from the mythos. Everything about the game is wonderful. Like, it's not really a negative about the game, even just entry of play. The only real negative you can say is that the same thing I would say for PC, where everybody doesn't have a PC. Not everybody necessarily has a PlayStation, which I respect and understand it. But that's why I didn't want to use that argument against Baldur's Gate. It was more of the type of game that is. Nobody's ever gonna have a problem with this game, even from the tutorial. It's just like, oh well, let's go run around in Sandman and fly through buildings. Like
I think that's
it's not really a
lot of
negative
games,
about the game. I can say. To me, this is number one. Debates. Baldur's Gate 3 fans.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's gonna win.
3-1.
Not to me, but it is what it is. Saying, like I like.
By the way, I want to shout out a bunch of games that's really fun that didn't make the list. I don't know if it just came out. Persona 5 Tactics is a fun game that made the list. It didn't make the list because it just came out, so most people don't know. Yeah, Wild Heart is a fun game, but it don't deserve to be on this list. Starfield, people can argue will be on this list, but it's an RPG fanboy thing.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
Remnants 2. Remnants 2 is an amazing game. If y'all ain't played that, don't forget Remnants 2. Atomic Heart, another amazing game that came out that didn't make the list. Super Mario Wonders, another game that made the list. Listen, these games that didn't make the list, they could have been top 4 last year.
I almost put Wonder, but I couldn't do it.
These are games that could have made the list last year, and could have been top 5 last year, and didn't even make this list. I'm just saying that. I'm just saying they could have made top 5 last year.
To piggyback off of Zelmay, I agree with the Mario statement. Also, Diablo 4, it was a big deal for a while. So that was that's an honorable mention, I would say. And then the Sonic game. I think that the Sonic Classic that's what it was.
Sonic Superstars.
Superstars. I'm sorry. That was a fun game from what I've seen and what I've watched. I watched gameplay. It looks like a real fun game to play. Classic vintage Sonic. So that does seem like something that just an honorable mention of some other good games. That's all.
Armored Core didn't make this list, by the way. Armored Core
was honorable mention.
Yeah, Armored Core not making the list is crazy.
It was.
Armored Core 6 delivered exactly what they said. We're gonna give you big robots shooting the shit out of each other. You know what it delivered? Big ass robots shooting the shit out of each other.
Yes, Armored Core 6 is.
And Citizen Sleeper is a very
my top 2 favorite developers. I do admit that. Yes.
And Citizen Sleeper is that game is amazing, but nobody played it.
Lethal Company.
Lethal
Company? I guess not. Indie games are a thing, folks. Remember that.
I mean, I wouldn't give shout out to plenty of them. I can give shout out to
Metal Gear Solid classics or collection rather. I mean, that's beautiful.
Metal Gear Solid.
They're not remakes, but it's nice to have them on current gen or next gen, if you will.
But it was a
shout out to Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the month that it was popular. Armored Core 6, like we said, great. Shout out to Diablo 4 before Blizzard got too greedy.
Yeah,
it's quite a few that was still really good.
Hell.
Like they just got way too greedy, and that was dragged it down. I mean, we like I said, I didn't include DLC. I would have said, of course, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom
Boy,
Liberties. I would of
Phantom
course put
Liberties
that on there,
was
but I did not include DLC. So I didn't want to ignore that. That is a great DLC. I just wasn't going to ignore it.
if this was a DLC list, it would have been DLC of the year because it added so much. It added a whole new part to the city. Like
It's essentially a different game.
exactly.
Like
Shout
if I
out to
was in,
Cyberpunk for figuring out how to revive a game that everybody hated and thought was dead, and
Bruh,
nobody
the
thought you could
anime
do it no more.
treatment followed by the fire, and they patched
Update.
all the
I
problems.
mean, you gave Persona game. I gave Persona 4 Golden if they remastered that as well. I love that too.
Yeah, but they did it too many times.
Persona 5
Yeah.
Tactics out here. Look, that's a fun game, by the way. I know most people, a lot of people ain't played it yet, but Persona 5 Tactics is a fun game.
And we have to do the sign off for this year, because we already have new games on the horizon. Rockstar is going to be trending on Tuesday, if you're not aware, because they will be dropping the Grand Theft Auto. I ain't gonna say 6 because they never said 6. We just the next Grand Theft Auto game. The trailer will be released on Tuesday, and of course, you have the video
If
game.
it's a mobile game.
Plenty of announcements next week as well. So next week, of course, tune into the show. We will be going over all the video game announcements over the course of that week. It's gonna be a wild week in gaming. Oh boy, can I imagine Grand Theft? I want Grand Theft Auto San Andreas too. I don't even care about 6, but it is what it is. We'll take whatever we can get Grand Theft Auto wise, so long as Rockstar hasn't gotten too greedy and still give us wonderful product without trying to bleed our pockets.
They're gonna pull a Blizzard.
Yeah, please don't do that, Rockstar. Even though I don't expect this game to be anywhere near 3 years from now, but you know what? We'll see how it is.
It and Elder Scrolls 6 coming out on the same day.
Jesus Christ.
They've been planning this for 12 years together.
And the internet would be broken because both of them updates would be massive, and then the online would be broken on day one. So you know how that goes. But of course, this was the top 10 video games of 2023, at least according to me. It was. If you missed it or need to know a fresh recap, it is Hi-Fi Rush at 10, Alan Wake 2 at 9, Street Fighter 6 at 8, Dead Space is sitting up here at 7, the remake at least. Of course, another remake, Resident Evil 4, is at 6, Hogwarts Legacy at 5, and I do have Final Fantasy 16 at 4. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at 3, Baldur's Gate 3 at number 2, and of course Spider-Man number 1. Those are my top 10, what I feel those best 10 games of this year. Of course, the order and of course your additions or subtractions are all welcome and warranted. If you appreciate what you're watching, please make sure go to the YouTube, make it make sense the podcast. Look for this lovely insignia. This is me. This is where we are here every Saturday, going through the trending topics of the week, going through the craziness around the world, and going through the fun stuff like this here. Going to be counting down every way of the year. Next week, we'll have another top 10 countdown going all the way to the last Saturday of this month. We will actually count down the top 10 trending topics of the year. You'll be surprised at how much we have already forgotten. It's going to be crazy. So make sure to tune in every week. Make sure to subscribe.